Most men peak at 25, but the ones who actually change the world, they're still figuring it out at 40. Jordan Peterson says this isn't a failure, it's a design. And once you understand why, you'll never look at your timeline the same way again. Society has one story about success. You figure yourself out early, you build fast, you win young. And if you haven't made it by 30, something is wrong with you. But here's what that story gets completely backwards. The man who struggles the longest, who carries the most weight, who fails the most times, who restarts when everyone else has already settled, that man is being built for something the early winner was never prepared for. Peterson calls this the burden that becomes the foundation, and it's one of the most important ideas he's ever put out. Most men spend their 20s avoiding weight. They avoid commitment, they avoid hard jobs, they avoid difficult relationships. They keep their options open because options feel like freedom. And for a while, it works. Life stays comfortable, life stays light. But Peterson says that's exactly why they stay small. Because here's the counterintuitive truth that most people never hear. You don't get strong and then pick up the weight. You pick up the weight, and that's what makes you strong. Every time a man says yes to something genuinely hard, a family, a business, a mission that's bigger than himself, his personality literally reorganizes around that responsibility. He becomes more conscientious, more disciplined, more reliable. Not because he sat down one day and decided to be a better person, but because the weight demanded it, because the thing he committed to required a version of him that didn't exist yet, and so he became it. This is why so many late bloomers suddenly explode in their 40s and 50s. They didn't get lucky. They didn't stumble onto some secret. They finally, after years of running, stopped avoiding the weight. And the moment they picked it up, everything started moving. Now, here's the part that makes Peterson's framework different from every other self-help idea you've heard. He doesn't pretend the path is clean. He talks about order and chaos, and most people hear that and think, okay, build order, avoid chaos. But that's not what he's saying at all. Peterson says chaos isn't the enemy. Chaos is the doorway. Every man who succeeds late in life has a chaos story. A business that collapsed, a marriage that fell apart, a decade that felt completely and utterly wasted, years where nothing worked, nothing clicked, nothing made sense. And the world looks at those years and calls them failure. Peterson looks at those years and calls them the curriculum. Because when everything falls apart, when the plan is gone, the identity is gone, the certainty is gone, you are forced to ask the question that most men spend their entire lives avoiding. What do I actually stand for? Not what do my parents want, not what does society expect, not what looks good on paper. What do I, at the core of who I am, actually believe is worth building? That question, answered honestly, is the beginning of everything. Because order that gets built on top of real chaos, order that was forged through actual collapse and actual rebuilding, that order is unshakable. But order that was never tested, order that was handed to you early before you ever had to fight for it, that collapses the first time life gets genuinely hard. The man who has been through the fire and rebuilt himself knows something the comfortable man will never know. He knows exactly what he's made of. And here's the most powerful proof Peterson ever gave us, without even meaning to. He wasn't famous at 25. He wasn't famous at 35. He wasn't even famous at 45. He spent decades as a university professor, a clinical psychologist. He wrote a book called Maps of Meaning that almost nobody read. He sat in lecture halls, worked with patients, refined his thinking year after year after year. He was 55 years old when the world suddenly knew his name. And when it hit like nothing anyone had seen before. Millions of people overnight feeling like this man was speaking directly to them. Why did it land so hard? Because there were 30 years behind every single word. 30 years of thinking, failing, questioning, living, suffering, and rebuilding. He wasn't performing ideas he'd read in a book. He was transmitting something he had actually lived. That's the difference between early success and late success. Early success is often loud and fragile. It looks impressive from the outside. but it doesn't have roots. One hard season, and it's gone. Late success is quiet, until it isn't. It builds underground for years, and when it finally breaks the surface, nothing stops it. So if you're in the middle of your chaos chapter right now, if you feel behind, if the years feel wasted, if you're watching everyone else move forward while you're still figuring it out, Peterson's message is not be patient. His message is harder than that, and more honest. Pick up the weight in front of you, the real weight, the thing you've been avoiding. Aim at something that actually matters to you and pursue it with everything you have. If this hit something in you, if some part of you recognized yourself in this story, do one thing right now. Hit like and subscribe. Because this channel exists for exactly the man who's still in the middle of his building phase. More is coming. Don't miss it. Because you're not late. You're being built. And the foundation being laid right now through every failure, every restart, every year that felt like nothing. That's not evidence you missed your window. That's the architecture of something the early winners will never have. Don't quit before it's finished.